Thank you to everyone for being here because what you're going to see today, it has been my life's passion for the last 5 years, really. And we've been developing for the last year and a half with tons of input from teachers. You know, what we've built here is really a teaching tool first. Actually, all of the curriculum and everything we're developing, it's not from some outsider perspective, like coming to destroy everything you've learned. It's actually, I mean, this is quite an evolution. So there's kind of no way that you would, here we go. There's kind of no way that you would just like think this up, imagine what EditMentor is on your own. Okay, so I'm going to show you this picture here is something you're probably all familiar with. Okay, this is a class that I taught in Hawaii. And you can see here that, we had 120 students in this group in the summer camp. And, the class has plenty of resources. Everybody has a computer. But inevitably what happens is you branch off into groups. You have one kid who braves the waters and edits. And this kid, they have a confidence about them that, I can do this and I'm really engaged and excited about it. And all these kids are just happy it's not them, right? And that's it. But yet, we call it EditMentor, but really what we're talking about is visual literacy, okay? We're talking about, understanding the reading and writing aspect of making any video. It doesn't have to be film. It just happens that my background, by the way, my name is Misha. EditMentor is, I'm the CEO of EditMentor. So I'm happy to answer all of your questions here. But what I'm driving at here is that, the reason that it's so tough and intimidating for students to learn this language of video storytelling is two reasons. One, they get very intimidated by it. And two, because the method that we use to teach them is this like, oh, just mute your mic there, is this throw them in the deep end approach, okay? Where like, they're going to try and fail and get discouraged. But actually the research tells us that we're better off if we give students a win right away, if we get them excited in the beginning. So now I'm going to show you, this is how we would traditionally teach something like the 180-degree rule in video editing or in filmmaking. This is a film from video from Film Riot, and hundreds of thousands of views, and they're teaching the 180-degree rule. And that's all fine and good, but this is not interactive at all. This is just watching a video. But other subjects that we learn online are interactive. So for example, learning computer coding or robotics or math or science, it's done like this, where I actually have to type something in a project-based environment and get feedback. And that's how this works. I press run, and here we go. So what EditMentor is, this is a browser-based software. There's nothing for your students to install or download. They can log in on a Chromebook. They can log in at school. They can finish their work at home. And I'm going to show you how we teach the same lesson just on the 180-degree rule, for example. So what the student would see is this course. These are our lessons. This is the first course's lesson. Each lesson is bite-sized, enough for a class period. You can teach it between 30 and 60 minutes. We're actually recommending this one takes about 45 minutes. But again, the students can log in. Oh, speaking of log in, if any of you would like to try this, you can log in right now. So just open up Google Chrome. Go ahead and open up Google Chrome. And by the way, if you don't have time to log in or try this now, I'm happy to send you this information later, or Nancy can send you a login later. But what I would do if I were you is open up Chrome. You have to use Google Chrome and type in, click login in the upper right corner here and type demo, the plus button, which is shift equals, and then any number between 500 and 600 will work. To be totally honest, pretty much any number there less than 800 will work. But for you guys, we're going between 5 and 600. And then the password is demo EditMentor with a capital D and a capital E. And this login is not going to expire at the end of this presentation. So you're all welcome to try EditMentor some of the lessons for yourself. Okay, hopefully you've gotten your moment to take a screenshot or try to log in. And I'm going to go back to presenting what EditMentor is. And if you haven't, you can write in the chat and Nancy will get back to you with what the username and password is. So in the 180-degree rule lesson, I'm just going to press start here and show you this is EditMentor now. Okay, we're in EditMentor and it looks a whole lot like editing software. And the reason is it pretty much is. Now you can't edit from scratch here. We're working on it. Someday you will, but we're really designed for teachers. So I'm just going to give you an example. I can move some clips around. I can trim the clips. I can delete the clips, mark in points and out points. But what's really cool is because this is a teaching tool, I can always reset my timeline and set everything back the way that we started. Now in this lesson, our goal is to teach students about the 180-degree rule. And there's a lesson overview here that the students can read or that you can give to the students in a multitude of ways that I'll show you here in a second. And if they get stuck, we have help articles that they can click. And what the student needs to do here is we're learning about just screen direction. So as I play the timeline here, what we're looking at is what way are the characters moving? So they're moving from right to left. And now they're moving from left to right. And so the student's first job is just to identify which shot has the wrong screen direction. And I know that, so like what the student needs to do is press this add marker button, and they've now placed a marker in a range. And when they're done, they submit their answer and the system will tell them, yes, you got it right, or no, you didn't, and why. And you can press view all possible answers so that the student can actually see the range. So if they had answered anywhere in this range, they would have gotten the answer correct. And what's really cool, just again, compare learning this way, where the student we're actually using those taxonomy words that are so powerful in teaching. We're saying identify something and the student has to actually do it, as opposed to this method where not only are we just watching a video passively, but we're also getting, advertisements sent our way. EditMentor never has advertisements on it. Okay, I'm just going to go to another random challenge. And in this one, we're again looking at the 180-degree rule. And we're going to mark a marker on the shot that breaks the 180-degree rule. So again, we're looking, the way that we're teaching this lesson is we're looking at his nose pointing left to right, her nose, his nose, those are good. Her nose is good. And then all of a sudden he's on the wrong side of the screen, right? So we've crossed the line. So this is another marker challenge. And again, I can submit my answers. I can read about why that's right or not right and view all the possible answers. Some of the other methods of answering questions involve deleting clips or trimming clips or answering interactive markers. And I just want to point something out. A really common question we get, and I'm happy if you write your questions in the chat. A really common question we get is like, well, my students are already editors. Okay, they're like 16. They can now import clips and export clips. So they've like mastered it. There's nothing left for them to learn about, the art of editing that, Misha has spent his entire life learning about. They've got it. And actually, this is a really common misconception. And so just to squash that real quick, I'm going to play for you a really simple but very powerful lesson that honestly is worth the price of admission to this webinar in and of itself. So in this lesson, we're teaching the students about that the main character in a story should be shown on screen the most. Just that's it. That very simple fact. If you were to just total up the number of seconds that they're on screen, the main character should be there the most. So I'm just going to play this 15-second timeline for you. It's boy meets girl. We have Michael, who's interested in Amita, and here's our story. Michael approaches Amita. By the way, this cut comes from a student cut of this project. in every step of the way in our curriculum development, we're using student projects. In fact, there are student projects in our lessons that the students need to adjust, that we actually licensed from the school. So as you can see here, Michael's 2 shots are really, really short. And Amita's shot is really long. Out of the 15-second sequence, Amita's shot is 11 seconds. So what we ask the students to do is, using the rolling trim tool, extend both of Michael's shots to give him more screen time and make him a more important character. And I'm just going to pull out the rolling trim tool here, just like you would in any NLE, click and hold and drag to the right. And so what we're trying to do is, yes, we're teaching them about the tool, but we're really teaching them about the why. And we're taking away the intimidation that students feel working with editing software, because they don't need to import, they don't need to sync, they don't need to export. All they have to do is just learn this one tool. Okay, so I'm trimming here, and I'm going to cut just before Amita looks up. And on the other side, I'm going to cut as Michael is sort of fumbling around in his bag. And let's rewatch the scene now that we've made these 2 simple changes. Here we go. And hopefully you can feel from this cut that it's much more about Michael now than it is about Amita. So that little lesson there, it comes from me judging literally thousands of student films over the years at various competitions, being a filmmaker myself, but also we hire professional filmmakers and professional teachers. They're not all professional filmmakers. Sometimes they're subject matter experts. So sometimes they're professional filmmakers, but sometimes they're documentarians or commercial makers. And what you can do now, the reason that we say this is a 30-minute to a 45-minute lesson. So I'll just submit my answer, and I'm going to squash one more question that's very common, which is, but Misha, editing is a subjective art, not an objective art. How can an answer here be right or wrong? Well, we give the students an answer range. So if they trim anywhere in here, they'll get it right. But if they trim a little bit before, they'll get a message like, you're partially correct. Good job giving Michael more time in this scene, but you could probably extend the shot even more. And if you disagree with any of this stuff, you can trim or change any of this lesson text, any of these challenges yourself. When you buy EditMentor, it's fully customizable by the teacher. And again, why we were saying that this lesson could take 30 minutes or it could take an hour, we also provide you with teacher guides. So this is a teacher guide for lesson 10. And again, EditMentor is not trying to work around education. We believe in educators. We want to support you guys. We're offering the simplest, the easiest, fully packaged curriculum that you could find anywhere for this art. And so you can see here, we're talking about what is a character's perspective, what is ping pong editing. We give you suggested topics to discuss with your students. We give you questions and answers, like a blank worksheet that you can hand out to your students, help articles. So it's really a compact thing. And we align to state standards for Common Core, CTE, ISTE. So we're really, we're built for teachers. Now, the other problem with this picture here is that you, the teacher, you have no idea what student learned what. Okay, you have a final project that you're looking at, but that's kind of it. In EditMentor, we have a dashboard, and I'm not even gonna start with the dashboard. I'm gonna start with an individual lesson scores. So I'm just pulling up a lesson that we taught recently to a group of students, and I'm gonna say review their scores for this lesson. And we can see how this demo student scored in the lesson, and we can see which challenges they got wrong. Just think about how powerful it is for you to be able to know objectively, not wondering, but know objectively which students in your class struggled with what, and is it all of the class or is it just one particular student? You have a ton more power, and all of this data can be piped directly to your LMS, to your learning management system. And if I wanted to learn more about demo student 1, I could click on their name and I would see the results of all the lessons that they've tried. Takes a minute to load. we're working on that to make it a little quicker. But you could see like this student has only completed one lesson. And if you want to take a look at the whole class, you can click on a dashboard and we can see how are the demo students doing. There are 800 students in this course. That's why it takes a minute to load. But we can actually see how they're doing in any particular course. So we can see which of these 800 logins has attempted a lesson. And let's see. So for example, this demo student has done assembly cut, story 01, trimming 01, trimming 02. And all this data can be exported. And again, it pipes directly into your LMS systems. So before I go further, because what I wanted to do in this webinar is actually walk you through a live lesson and have you guys with me have fun doing this. It's only been 15 minutes, so you've gotten the spiel. So I'd love to know if there are questions that you might have or any kind of feeling that you might have about EditMentor. And while you're doing that, I invite you guys to log in so I can walk you through a lesson. And you can even, we'll kind of pick a lesson together for you to try. So I've got my eye on the chat. And while I'm looking at the chat, this is the login information. If you haven't already logged in, go ahead and log in. And I would say in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to be teaching you guys a lesson you can actually walk through and hopefully take with you. In fact, we should probably just do the scene perspective lesson because it's probably one that's going to get you all fairly excited. It is mostly a trimming lesson. Different lessons use different tools. We never teach in this method. We never say, use the ripple trim tool to add 10 frames. You know, it's always, we're trying to extend the moment. How would you extend Rachel's shot to make her, to see more of her reaction? We're always teaching the why. We're always teaching the storytelling part. So, okay, if you've been able to log in, I'll give you a minute to keep doing that. If you've been able to log in, go ahead and visit you should only have one course. It's probably called Demo User Course. And what you want to do is press this Lessons tab on the right side. Now, you're all welcome to do any of these lessons that you'd like after the presentation. But for now, let's work through this scene perspective one together just because it kind of happens to be one that I've done recently and I love it. Honestly, this is one of my favorite lessons. So we're going to do this, challenge number 1 again. And I'll give you a moment to read the text and give this a try. And while you're giving lesson 1 a try, I want to mention one more thing that you're not seeing yet, but is coming very soon. In fact, it already exists. And I see a great question about internet speed. So actually, let's answer this question more broadly about accessibility. So the question in the chat, and go ahead and try this first example that I already kind of showed you how to do. You can read the text, you can read the challenge text. And as you're doing that, I want to talk about student accessibility. So my question is about internet speed. Some students have limited or lower speed internet. Can this online learning be taught to everyone with varying speeds? Yes. Our primary goal with EditMentor is to be the best teaching tool for visual storytelling on earth. That is the guiding light. That is our principle. It is not to be the best 4K editor in the world. So for that reason, we've set our playback to be really small file sizes. We're talking about, 720p streaming over the internet at low bandwidth. We have almost no hardware requirements. We run on a Chromebook and we'll run on tablets that run Windows. So for example, the Microsoft Surface, we should run just fine. We don't run on Android or iOS yet, but anything that can run Google Chrome, we run on, basically. Speaking of accessibility, you can't see this feature here yet, but we've added because we just added it, but we've added an audio feature So for your students who are kind of low literacy or poor readers, they can press play and the overview text will play back as a voice. And we also have, we use a tool called Accessibility for students who have other impairments like visual impairment or need larger text or need different colors and that kind of thing. So something we have funneled through our school district. Yeah. So so the next question to come in here is about the CARES Act. So the CARES Act is, hopefully you all received your federal stimulus check. As part of that law, a large pool of money is sent to schools to apply for programs just like EditMentor. And we have a template that you can use to write a letter for that. Now, I understand that schools and districts have different processes. I'm not sure if you can apply directly to the government. You may want to ask your administrator, but you might be able to. So we have a pre-written letter for that we'll share later, and Nancy can share with you guys later. Okay, I'm going to now move to challenge number 2, scene perspective. And I'm going to start the challenge. So hopefully you're here with me. And again, this cut that you're watching here, it is a student cut. It's not kind of a student cut. We didn't make it as an example. It is from a real student who submitted this cut. And what you probably have taught them in class, hopefully, because we have a lesson on this called Continuity 01, we teach people that cutting on action makes a cut look smooth and invisible. So let's watch this cut and see how the student put the cut together.
So when she's full, just turn her on and she'll be cooking in no time. Is that everything? That's it. Knock off! Yeah, boy.
So you can see the student cut on that high five.
So, Mike, when's your wife back? Gotta have someone to christen her with.
And we have the sad lead character. Now the story is a sad one. The older gentleman here has lost his wife. He's now a widower. And this guy's a delivery guy who's dropping off a spa and notices that the main character is lonely. But if you look at how the scene is cut, the largest amount of time is spent on the delivery guy. And again, this is such a common problem because what the student looked for is just a great invisible cut point. And as good as this cut point is,
knock off! Yeah, boy.
If you know Walter Murch's rule of 6, invisible is not rule number 1. Rule number 1 is cut for story, and number 2 is cut for emotion. So I'm going to pull out the rolling trim tool. And for you guys following along with me here, that's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th tool down. And it's the one that looks like 2 arrows pointing in opposite directions. And I'm going to grab that tool and just go to my cut point here and drag it to the right to give the main character more time on screen. And I'm going to pick a point using the 2 up display before the delivery guy turns his head to the right here, and just cut somewhere around there. And what I would do if I were you, if I were teaching a class to students, I would ask them this question: what does the audience gain by seeing the main character on screen for this much more time?
Boy.
What did we gain there? What insight? You can talk about how the main character feels. What are they doing with their face and their hands and their, expressions? And why is the audience sort of soaking that in? And I'm just checking here. You can see there's 2 bullet points to getting this question right. And I'm getting a question here. Publish lessons in the dashboard. It's not allowing me to see anything. Okay. Okay, so I'm actually asked to extend also the tail of this shot to give Don a little more time. Now, where am I going here? I don't know. Let's listen to the cut.
So, Mike, when's your wife back?
Oof, that's a loaded question, right? When's your wife back? In fact, later in this lesson, we'll talk about subtext because that question has a lot of subtext to it, at least in terms of the main character. So play this lesson back again.
Turn her on and she'll be cooking in no time.
And hopefully you'll feel an improvement.
That's it. Knock off. Yeah, boy. So, Mike, when's your wife back? Gotta have someone to christen her with.
Much more powerful cut, much more powerful cut, just by making these tiny little adjustments. And really, you know, it's not about the adjustment. It's about the mindset that your student has when they're making their own projects. I want them thinking, who's the main character? How do they feel about it? You know, that when in our lesson text description, we give a great example of a scene where you have a main character and a sick friend, and production has spent all this time and money making the sick friend like we've got a really cool hospital bed and we have all these gowns and doctor things and beeping machines. But actually, even in that scenario, you show the main character the most, because the story is not how is the sick friend doing? The story is, how does the main character feel about having a sick friend? And just this change in mindset is really what we're trying to give the students. You know, in all of our lessons, we have lessons on identify the obstacle in the scene, identify the key moment in the scene. What does the main character want? What's the quest they go on? Okay, I'll submit my answers and I'm going to go on to the next challenge here. And I love this one. This one is about ping pong editing. Okay, so ping pong editing is when you go back and forth. One rule that we kind of teach our students, I used to teach students this way. I would say, generally speaking, whoever's talking, that's who you want to show on screen 90% of the time. And that's true. But if you only do that, then the screen time allotted to each character is just based on a whim. It's luck. It's whatever it ends up being. So I'm going to play for you a scene where we end up with this ping pong effect of we go kind of left, right, and no one has any perspective. So this scene is called, this scene is from a movie called Cinder Pumpkin, and it's another boy meets girl. We have Cinder over here on the right, and we have Max, that's her love interest, here on the left. So I'm going to play this scene.
Before I forget,
it's a little quiet.
A party? Sounds great.
Yeah, and I was wondering, you know, if you're not busy,
so
could you possibly help me out with the final as well? I'm so busy, you know, I don't think I'll have time to do both. I totally understand. You don't want to.
So I know that the audio here is a little quiet, so I'm just going to kind of repeat what they're talking about here. Max is saying, we're having a party later. Can you help me with the math, help me with the homework? And Cinder, who's obviously interested in Max, is not invited, at least not yet. But if you look at the timeline, again, it's the same problem. These small clips here, this is Cinder. This is our main character. And the longer clips here, this is Max. Okay, Max is getting the most amount of screen time, even though he's not the main character of the scene. So this is a very simple multiple choice question. We're just asking the student to answer who has the most screen time in this scene. And the answer is Max. And I just want to point out, by the way, David Burton Morris is here. Hi, David. He was the director on pretty much the first feature-length indie movie that I ever edited. So welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, DBM. You're muted. Let's see.
I just saw your email came in, and I realized I was 25 minutes late. But yeah, I'm going to say I'm trying to master this. It's so hard for me. That's why I hire people like you. You're a great cutter. And anyhow, carry on.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
So in all our lessons, now I'm blushing. That's why I'm sharing my screen. In all our lessons, we have this show hint button too. So students can get a little hint about how to answer the question. And we also have reveal answers. Now, if they reveal the answer, they're not going to see they're not going to get score points for this. And again, I know that the arts, where normally we have this knee-jerk reaction of like, you cannot judge art, it's all subjective. And again, we are not trying to like argue that point. There are many different ways to edit this scene, all of which can be correct. But using grades is a huge motivator for your students. They will do these lessons over and over again to try to get 100. Compare that to a video that they may or may not watch or may not retain any information on. It's just like how you feel sometimes when you're giving a lecture, especially to a bunch of, blank Zoom screens. You don't always know how people feel, right? And having taught this way a bunch of times this last year, I know it can be really tough. I had a room of 75 students the other day at a conference Nancy and I were attending, and it was literally like you didn't see anyone's face. You got no feedback. It's like impossible to know. But you'll know with EditMentor because, of course, you can check their work. Okay, I'm going to move on to Ping Pong 02. That's challenge number 4. And we're doing the same kind of adjustment to this scene. So I'm just going to play the scene.
Oh, before I forget, I am having a party tonight.
A party? Sounds great.
A party? Sounds great.
I was wondering, if you're not too busy, could you possibly help me out with the final as well?
Okay, so
I'm so busy, I don't think I'll have time to do both.
So I actually kept I couldn't even stop myself from pausing there because it's just like my natural instinct to want to change the cut at that spot. There's like editors have like a little bit of an internal timing, so I'm always pausing it like where I think the cut point should be. And one just great rule of thumb I like to share with students is whenever there's a question, there needs to be a reaction, even if the question is a rhetorical one. So I'm just going to play. Let's see what Max says.
Yeah, and I was wondering, if you're not too busy.
I was wondering if you're not too busy.
Could you possibly help me out with the final as well?
Could you help me out with the final as well? Now, obviously, that's not what Cinder wants to hear. But we don't know that yet because we haven't actually seen this land on her face. So again, I'm going to pull out my rolling trim tool and I'm going to tell the story from her perspective. So I'm trimming this last clip to the left here and playing this back, and let's see if it feels any different.
I was wondering, if you're not too busy, could you possibly help me out with the final as well? I'm so busy, I don't think I'll have time to do both.
Okay, so hopefully you feel the difference because you got to see this really great reaction on Cinder's face. All right, I'm going to move on to the next one. I'm trying to get to subtext before I answer some more questions. So I'm actually going to skip the next 2 challenges. You guys can do them on your own, but I'm going to skip them just because we're running a little late on time. And I really want to show you another tool that we have. So in this question, this one's about subtext. And what we like to say is, just like in real life, characters don't say out loud how they feel. She's not just going to come out and say, I have a crush on you, Max. You should invite me to the party. And we have these glowing triangles. Now, remember what I was telling you, we're trying to take away the intimidation that editing software brings. And so in our first lesson, all the student has to know is basically this play button, play and pause, a little bit of scrubbing in the timeline, and how to click these triangles. And so here we have a question, subtext for Max. What does Max think the subject of his line? What is the word for orange? So I'll just play this back. I'm not sure how loud this is. Cinder?
Hi, Max.
Okay.
Hey, thank you so much for helping me out with that paper. I think I'm really starting to get the hang of this French thing now. So what was the word for orange?
Orange?
Yeah. Could you spell that for me?
Okay, so hopefully you could hear that. Max says, what is the word for orange? And she says, orange. And then he goes, could you spell that for me? And hopefully you saw a lot of emotion on their faces, right? Look at this eye contact he's making. Look at her look right here. Look at Max's look right here.
Could you spell that for me?
And what the student is asked here is, what's the subtext? What does Max think? What does the word for orange means? Does he think that, you know, is he trying to tell Cinder he has a crush on her? Is he craving an orange? Or is that just, he's really just wondering what the word for orange means? And then on the other hand, what does Cinder think the subtext of that word is? He's just asking for the word for orange in French, or she thinks he's not very smart, or she thinks he's flirting with her, which is really what it is, right? And we have a similar moment. Let's see. What is the subtext of Cinder's reaction to the line of sounds great, telling her he's having a party? So he says, I'll just play this little section. We never, by the way, we never make a question or answer that you don't have to work to solve. You can't just click these triangles and know the answer to the question. You have to play back the timeline or search through the media library to find a clip and play it back. Or you have to, you know, there are a multitude of ways that the student has to, you know, interact with the software before answering the question.
Oh, damn. Before I forget. I'm having this party.
A party? Sounds great.
Yeah.
So a party sounds great. Okay, so what's the subtext of that? She thinks Max is going to invite her to the party. That's what she's hoping for, right? She wants to go to the party, certainly does. And she is playing it cool. Also the truth. I want to make 2 quick points about this subject, okay? If you think that it's only high school kids who like don't get it, you know, you are sorely mistaken. When I came out to school here in LA, the students are already, most of them, working professionals who take a class on editing. And all of our education on editing is focused right now on how to use Adobe Premiere, or how to use Final Cut Pro 10, or how to use Avid Media Composer, and all the buttons and surrounding environment that make that up. We had a lesson in, this is after college, this is in a vocational school, where we had to edit together a charade. So the actor is doing like 2 words, first word, 2 syllables. And at the end of it, the teacher didn't ask, let me see your cut. The teacher asked the editor, what's the answer to the charade? And no one knew. You know, why on earth would no one know? Because no one is, they're not thinking about the story. You know, that's why the EditMentor curriculum is all about the story. It puts a story right at the center. And from that, through that lens, the stuff we're teaching is not complicated. It's not complicated to teach a student the lesson that the main character should be on the screen the most amount of time. You know, when I watch films that high school kids make and compare them to films that college kids make, the ones that succeed are the ones that make a lot of films, not the ones who are older or in the best schools or in the worst schools. It's literally just the kids who make the most projects, you know, or have the most exposure to this kind of material. So it really isn't about, you know, students' age. Let's see. Okay, I'm getting a message. I want to take this time now to answer some questions if there are any. So feel free. David, if you want to log in, you probably have a login already, but if you don't, you can use this one using Google Chrome. So I'm going to give you guys a minute to ask any questions that you may have. Oh yeah, right. The ever popular topic of price. I totally should have brought that up. So the cost of EditMentor is right now is approximately $1 per month per student, approximately. So we have I'm going to go through the pricing plan actually right now. If you order before June 1st, or rather if you get a quote in before June 1st, you'll get our launch pricing. So this is the lowest pricing we'll ever have. The smallest subscription is a 30 student license and it costs $400. After that, you buy seats basically in chunks of 30. So a 60 student license is $765. After June 1st, it's going to be this number in front of the slash. So you really should get in a quote now. What is included in that? You get any lesson that we build, period. The students are interchangeable. So like if you had 30 students your first semester and 30 students your second semester and they were different students, you can delete the first batch of students. And you can export the first batch of students' grades so that you're not losing that data. We also connect to popular learning management software. And we use a tool called GG4L for single sign-on. So your students wouldn't even need to create logins if your school uses GG4L. You also are able to edit any of these lessons. I'm just going to show you really quick what that even means. So with any lesson, I'm just going to pick a random one. It'll be the first one just because it's here. We have this little pencil up here in the upper right corner, and you have the exact tools that we used to create the lesson. So for example, if I wanted to add a new challenge, I can press add challenge, call it Misha's test challenge, and say this one's going to be a marker challenge. And I'm going to say which clip is it? And here you can see you can upload an audio description. So I could actually upload an audio file of me reading which clip is it for the students to play back. You could upload a video. This is a new feature we just added. And then you can give your students a hint. Hey kiddo, it's the first clip. And then you give the lesson a score, the challenge a score, and you say, sorry, that's not quite right. If they pick something that's outside of your selected range. And then this is really cool. EditStock and EditMentor are sister companies. So some of you guys may know my other company, EditStock, which sells unedited footage. If you want to use, if I press select template, and you want to use a movie that EditStock has, you just pick the template, and now you have all of the clips and the cut already in your timeline. So you can now build, for example, I'm going to now build this question, adding the answers, and just click, hold, and drag. Now I've made an answer range. I'll say this is correct. It's worth 10 points. And yes, it's the first clip. In fact, I want to mention no answer in EditMentor just says yay or no. Every answer has an explanation to it. I'm just going to adjust this clip a little bit. Stop and save. I've saved the challenge. Now I'm going to rearrange it to put Misha's test challenge as the first one in the lesson. Save the lesson. By the way, some of you guys might have, for example, you want to link to the teacher's guide. So I'm going to share the teacher's guide, and I'm just going to highlight these clips and add a link. And now you've shared a worksheet with the student. You can save this challenge. And now let's go play it. How many students can log in? I'm seeing a question here. Oh, and thank you, Nancy, for sharing the CARES Act document. How many students can log in? You could have hundreds of students logging in all at once. I mean, you can, that's the beauty of this. You know, you don't need hundreds of computers. Can this be purchased in Canada? I love that question too. We are currently working with the Toronto District School Board in a pilot program for 15 schools there. Yes, we have passed the very high bar for student privacy, not only in Toronto, but also at LAUSD. So if anyone out there thinks we can't pass a student personally identifiable information standard, you were wrong. We're very good. We're very good at that. So this is the challenge we made. Which clip is it? If I click it, if I click the link, I go right to the teacher guide or any document that the teacher created. I start the challenge, and this is the challenge we just made together. Where are the teacher guides? We haven't officially shared them yet because we've only made them for half the program, but the teacher's guides, I'm going to share a link with you right now. Let's go to the curriculum folder, And here's our film editing basics course. And here's the teacher guides. So now I'm going to share this folder. Copy link. And now that is going to be in the chat. Okay. So you're welcome to take a peek at those, especially as you are going through the lessons when you log in. Okay, we've been on for a while. Let's see, what else can I answer for you guys? One more thing, why don't I answer a little more about student privacy? You know, the idea of EditMentor for me came because I was working on I was learning about chess actually in an interactive way. And there's a program called Chess Mentor. That's where the name for EditMentor comes from. And it was all about like how you move the pieces and that kind of thing. And the more I wondered how we could do that with video editing, we're starting to really, you know, I brought on teachers who are really helping align like what is the modern science of teaching. So that's where we have the teacher guides and the all the curriculum standards documents for like Common Core. But really what I've learned is that it's not just the teacher who needs to fight the fight to get the program. There's a whole administrative layer, and that in order to get funding, that includes, for example, students with disabilities or internet accessibility issues. And one of the big ones is student personally identifiable information being private. So we are FERPA and COPA compliant. You know, we have a lawyer, we've made a very secure privacy policy, and we've done a lot of work in that arena. So, you know, you have no fears there. Okay, unless there's anything else I can answer for you guys, I think I'm gonna wrap it up. But I just wanna say thank you for taking the time for being here today. We had a great turnout, and I'll make this video available for you. Please stay on our newsletter for updates, and feel free to email me or Nancy any questions. And my email is misha@editmentor.com. And Nancy is going to add her name into the chat here in just a second. I just don't want to spell it wrong, even though I'm sure I know how to spell it by now. But you know, feel free to email either one of us with any questions that you have. Take a test drive, try it with your students, whatever you think works best. Okay, so that's what we've got today. So thank you, everybody. Have a good one.